This is different. Very passionate male vocals there. Today, we're going to be reacting to some music from Expedition 33. I had so much fun doing my Mario Kart World OST reaction a few weeks ago, and I've gotten quite a few requests to listen to this soundtrack, Expedition 33. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's from a video game. I'm not 100% sure. I literally know nothing about this soundtrack or this game. So I'm going into it completely blind, and I like to do that because I like to listen to things for the first time completely fresh and get a full experience, and hopefully that will come through in this video as well. So yeah, let's just get into it. And if you are a composer, producer yourself, you'll probably appreciate this sort of material because I really like to go through and analyze the melodic content, the harmonic content, also the arrangement itself, the orchestration behind it, all the instruments coming together, plus the mixing, the mastering, the complete process. And so if you're interested in that sort of thing, I've actually got a workshop down below in the description you can check out on demand, completely free. I call it the Complete Composer's Framework, and it literally goes through step by step how I think about coming up with ideas, putting them into your computer, producing them with virtual instruments, and then polishing them, releasing your track into the world. It's start to finish. It goes over every single step. So if you want to check that out, I want to give it to you as a gift for checking out this video today. And yeah, without any further ado, let's get into it. I've got my piano ready. I've also got my little handy ChordieApp ready in case we need to analyze and we want to see actual things on screen. So without further ado, let's get into it. And I wanted to start things off with the full orchestral session. I took a look at some Expedition 33 music on YouTube, like I typed it in, and there was one video of the entire soundtrack that's like 8 hours and 10 minutes long, and I don't think I could do that in a single video, to be honest. So I'll pick out a handful of pieces today, and we'll just go through and listen to these pieces. These were selected by you guys, by the way. I did a community post a couple weeks ago asking which pieces you would recommend. So if you want to get involved in that sort of thing, definitely check out the community posts and get subscribed and like the video. So anyway, let's get into it. Let's have a listen to Alicia, which is the first piece in this soundtrack. So let's have a listen. Immediately taken by just this very sparse but intimate orchestration. You know, there's a lushness with the strings. It's sort of like string quartet or quintet, and the vocals obviously lend a lot to a soundtrack for sure. The thing about, like, for example, Mario Kart World soundtrack or a lot of Nintendo soundtracks is that they don't include typically many vocals, because a lot of it I think is just focused on the instrumentation itself. But this very first piece of music, this song, has a female singer in it, and she's fantastic. So this is really beautiful so far. Also, it's in a minor key, so I'm assuming this game is a little bit on the darker side, and taking a look at the cover art that I've seen, it seems to be a darker game as well. Maybe you guys can let me know down below in the comments what this game is all about. Love those little gaps in the arrangement, allowing the singer to sing so we can appreciate those vocals a bit more. Now this sounds like sort of the chorus of the song. It's a lot more powerful. Beautiful. Let's take a quick look at this progression because it's very classical in nature. Very diatonic, staying true to the key of C minor in this case. Let's have a listen. Here we go. Right. So a lot of it is primarily based in the key of C minor, you know? Actually, it is in the key of C minor, but we kind of get this nice rise to the third, in this case E flat major, and then after that there's like a D minor 7, you know, with the flat 5 in there, so D half diminished. That's a really beautiful sound to get that lead into the G7, which is the dominant 7th, and then going back to the 1 chord. So a lot of very typical classical progressions that suit this piece and this mood very, very well here. Ooh, little D diminished, full diminished chord there. That adds a nice touch of color. Nice, and a little bit of rubato there as well, so allowing the piece to breathe. Oh, now we get a cello solo. Beautiful. Cello's my favorite string instrument personally. I did play some violin growing up, but as I've gotten older, I've appreciated more of the just the expressive technical range of the cello. It can go so low, it can also go so high, and so it's no surprise that it's used as a solo feature here. Beautiful cinematography here, by the way. You can tell it's very, very high quality cameras and, you know, shooting techniques. I know nothing about videography, but just I can appreciate the quality in this production here. And we get the chorus one more time after this instrumental, so it's very, very satisfying to listen to. You also notice how the melody, the vocal melody, is sort of being doubled up the octave in the violin there. So it accentuates, brings it out even further. Let's hear that one more time. Hear that high violin line doubling up the octave right there. It's thin, but it complements the buttery smooth vocals very beautifully. Oh, beautiful deceptive cadence, right? So we would expect to go back to the 1 chord C minor. In this case, we go up to the 6th. So that's called a deceptive cadence when you're going from 5 to 6 instead of going from 5 back to 1. And this is a beautiful performance technique as well. Notice she's not breaking character. She's staying in the performance until the very end of the music. I accompany a lot of musical theater singers for music festivals and stuff throughout the year. And that's the illusion we want to continue displaying to the audience, right? That's that performance mode that you have to keep intact all the way until you hear that very final note. And even after that point, you still want to maintain that character for the next 2-3 seconds before you come back to yourself and then take your bow, acknowledge the audience, all that great stuff. So fabulous musicians, fabulous musicianship, and just a great start to the soundtrack so far. Next up, we've got Lumière. Oh, now he's playing a guitar instead of the piano. Multi-talented, not surprised. Very simple chord progression, but you know, the articulation of the strings and the vocalists as well, they're kind of having more fun with this piece so far. It's really, really beautiful. I don't understand anything, but you can see in their expression and you can hear it in the music. I'm guessing this is a French game, maybe? Kind of cool. Very delicate approach now, removing the arco, like the long strings, and now we've just got pizzicato in the strings. You can see them plucking the strings, so it adds a very vibrant little touch, and then the piano's just tinkling along. Now we get the more sustained textures in the violins to add some harmony and some sustained textures. And now we got the chorus again. Ooh, let's hear that one more time. Interesting. So the guitar... Yeah, hear how the guitar... Sorry, let's bring up ChordieApp here. We're going 4, and then he plays a minor 7 there. I was fully expecting a dominant 7 before we go back to the B minor there. So interesting choice, minor 7 to the 1 instead of dominant 7. Also, a classic way to sing in harmony, just in thirds. So it keeps the vocals very close together and you can hear the melody still very clearly, and the third below in the diatonic scale allows you to keep it very, very colorful but not dissonant. This is nice. Now we get a violin solo in contrast to... Oh, and actually the cello is also kind of interacting and countering the violin very nicely there. Ah, now we get the full choir. That's pretty cool. Didn't expect that at all, but... That's a really classic technique there. So adding in more instrumentalists, more singers, more musicians to ramp up the intensity for the final chorus of the song before we strip almost everything away and go back to the energy level of about a 1 or 2 out of 10. So very, very light, just to end things off. And of course, accompany it with just a little writ at the very end to signify this is the end of the song. Beautiful. Okay, L'aurore aux doigts de rose. See, I took French up until like grade 9 in because I'm Canadian, so I should know my French, but I don't, so I'm pretty bad. Sorry. Oh, this is just bringing back some good memories. You see those black folders that they're holding? I used to hold that in when I was in university and we had to join a choir. We had our own distinct folders and, you know, they gave us all the music. So yeah, this was fun. I actually had to sing an opera. I was a lumberjack. Good times, good memories. Sorry, back to the music. Yep, sounds like we've got the full SATB, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. And it's just some really beautiful counterpoint and harmony happening here throughout. This conductor looks like, what's his name? Jesse Eisenberg, or the guy who was like the Joker in one of the Batman movies? Reminds me of that guy. There's something so raw and authentic about the human voice, just doing a cappella. You know, there's nothing else to distract us. We're just hearing the most heartfelt instrument at our disposal, our own instrument that we all have inside of us. It's beautiful. I love how short and sweet this piece was. Beautiful. And it was in A minor too, and then it resolved in to C major, so it went to the relative major. Pretty sure this was an A minor. Let's hear. Yeah, A minor, and then we kind of went to a positive note at the very end with the C major. That's beautiful. Next, we've got Aline. Back to the piano and singers and strings. So we're in the key of C minor again, just like Alicia, the very first song. Ooh, that was pretty. Let's hear that again. Hear that there. So we're kind of going, again, we're in the key of C minor, and then we're nearing the end of the phrase. So we have this 7 chord, right, which would be B flat in natural minor. And then the piano does a very light like GD, so it's signifying the 5 chord, right? And then the piano's kind of doing like a B or F, so that's like the 3rd and the 7th of the dominant 7, G7. And then the string harmonics there in the cellos are doing that G and D. So we, in effect, we get this full G7 chord. That's really, really cool, right? A really smart orchestration technique there. You don't get that full thing in the piano, but you just get that hint of G7 that's like causing us to just wait for a second, suspend us, and then we resolve back to the 1 chord. That's a nice technique as well. So we're in C, and then here. And here, instead of going to like B flat to E flat, which would be the 5 to 1 in E flat major, like the relative major of C minor, we actually stay on the B flat in the pedal or in the bass, and we sort of get this G minor E flat major sound. So it's like an E flat major 7 sound, and then the bass resolves down to the A flat. So the bass actually stays where it is before going down, instead of going from B flat then to E flat. So you get that 5-1, and then you go to the 4 in that case. So this is just a really, really cool use of inversions, basically. Complete change of color here. So we're still staying in this same key of C minor, but suddenly we've got a more pizzicato passage here and keeps things a little bit more lively with some legato strings still taking place here. Great voice leading in the strings, you know? So the chords sound very smooth going from one to another, instead of them all moving up thirds, down fifths, or whatever it might be. You kind of go to the nearest chord tone of the following chord. And then just piano and vocal. Oh, now we got the strings coming in, maybe just to help finish the piece. And we get no resolution. We're hanging on that 5 chord. Oh, I like that. I like that. 5. Right? It's like, are we going to get the 1 chord? Are we going to get the resolution? No, we're not. So yeah, like emotionally, it kind of keeps us in that not anxious, but suspended state, right? We don't get that, we don't get the release of the one chord. So yeah, really cool. All right, next, Until Next Life. This is giving me John Bellion vibes, just sitting with his guitar, ukulele, and surrounded by other musicians. Beautiful. I like that we're getting an English song, and I love her accent. I love the French accent. It's so interesting. Like when British people sing, it just sounds like an American accent, but you know, with French, obviously you can actually hear the accent. So I'm not exactly sure why. I'm not a linguist, but it's really cool. And just a classic way to orchestrate here as well. Again, starting very, very simple with just, you know, one instrument, guitar or piano with vocal. And then as we move to the next section, the development, the B section, you add in another ensemble or another instrument. In this case, this string section. Because it just adds more body to the overall sound, and it increases the energy, the intensity. Ooh, nice little tremolos there in the strings as well. Just varying up the texture, you know, so it's cool. Again, just, man, beautiful videography and cinematography here. Lighting is great. You notice here, as she's singing a little bit higher in her range now, the instrumentation behind her isn't really stepping on her voice's toes. Like, it leaves a lot of room for her voice to just kind of soar over the rest of the orchestra. Even though she's not singing very high, you can still hear it very, very clearly. So it's basically the arranger respecting the vocal register, you know? And by the way, this being in G sharp minor, it's a very dark key to my ears. I tend to find things like G sharp minor, E flat minor, like those are very dark keys in general. Beautiful. Applause. Applause for the orchestra, applause for the singers. And they have credits here. Yeah, just fantastic. A fantastic start to the soundtrack. I love how you feel the respect for the music, the love for the music through the arrangements, the performances, everyone just displaying such great musicianship and enjoyment of the music, you know? So I'm excited to hear some other pieces. Obviously, I guess we don't get the actual visual recording aspect, but let's hear some other pieces here. All right, let's have a listen to Gustave. This was another recommendation from the community post, so let's have a listen to this one. Ooh, that's really cool. Wait, let's hear that again. Yeah, you get those textures swelling in. So it's either like the string players, you know, really playing a certain way, like increasing the intensity as we swell into that bar, or there's like affected samples and stuff happening, like reversing samples, sound design, that sort of thing. It's really cool. Beautiful cello leading the way. Yeah, in general, a very simple progression here, like in B minor, going to G, to E minor, to F sharp, you know? So it's basically a 4-chord progression, but still, it's arranged in a way where the chords kind of just flow by and you don't even notice them changing chords almost. It just lets, like the focus really is just on the instrumentalist, the instruments singing and doing their thing. Great interaction between the strings, the piano, and then we got the piano at the top tinkling away with the broken chords, arpeggios. And the focus you can hear is on these mid-range strings right now, those solo strings. Interesting. We got the viola or violin doubling the cello in octaves there to stress that melody, bring it forth, making it a little heavier. Now, we went up a whole step because we were in B minor before, now we're in the key of C sharp minor. So C sharp minor is one of my favorite keys. It's the relative minor of E major, which is my personal favorite key of all time, E major. So because they're so directly related, you can just hear the beauty in this key as well. Interesting, we've got like a layering of piano sounds here. We get a more closely mic'd piano and then it's layered with this more atmospheric piano melody on the top. So it creates a nice sense of space, that piano top there. Yeah, it's just amazing how a soundtrack can really come to life when you have the resources to hire live musicians and get great arrangers, and of course the videography was great as well. But yeah, the music just really breathes in a way that's not that easy to replicate with sample libraries and virtual instruments, which is what I do cover in my workshop, by the way, down below. But obviously there's a big difference compared to live players. And now we get that melody again, but it's played in octaves as well. Yeah, now we get this sort of counterplay. We get the melody, main melody, da-da-da-da-da-da, and then with this long cello legato line in the middle. So you get two main textures to kind of focus on, whereas there's more pizzicato strings and more background textural elements filling up the rest of the space. Beautiful. I think a little writ at the end would have been nice as well. Like, and take your time before the last chord. That's just a personal thing, but this is a beautiful track all the same. All right, let's have a listen to this one here. Spring Meadows, Get Up for Lumière. Yeah, let's see. Okay, so very orchestral once again. But this is our first very intense sounding piece here. Again, in the key of C minor, and very aggressive with those low strings. Very, very clean recording quality, just like the other tracks. So cello taking center stage, very mono as well, or like very up the center. And it's up to the cello, the strings, sorry, it's up to the choir and the strings in the background, the percussion, whatever it might be, to wrap up the space around the cello there. Again, quite a simple progression here, but kind of making the most out of it, you know? It's basically C minor, B flat major, A flat, and then G. Like, so you're kind of descending down the scale, G7, back to the one chord. Right. And now the cello does some tremolos, so it kind of brings up the intensity, makes us feel a little bit more anxious, suspense, you know, what's gonna happen. Very interesting. We got, I think it's a viola pan to the left here. So we get the cello in the middle, we get the viola on the left complementing it. It just adds a lot of additional color and harmony to the cello part. This is nice. Now we've got the heavy drums and the strings at the very top, those high violins, playing the melody, and we still get the focus on the solo cello doing more of like an improv sort of style, venturing a little bit further than what it's done before. And of course, the choir now comes in and adds even more intensity and bite and organic feel. Yeah, another beautiful piece. What I'm noticing about this soundtrack, kind of similar to most video game pieces, is that it sort of chooses one specific mood and sticks with it, you know? It sort of takes its time to establish the core idea, it builds up an instrumentation, and then it kind of dies down at the very end, which is a lot of what great music should do, right? It's not like a film score, for example, where over the course of a scene, you could get various different moods depending on what's happening on the screen. These individual pieces, they all have their own unique feel to them, but it stays consistent for the duration of that piece, which is, I think, sort of a classic trope that these pieces tend to do. All right, next, let's have a listen to Monoco. This is different. I'll never complain about a sax, you know? Definitely leaning more into the jazz side. This is pretty cool. Giving me Mario Kart vibes, you know? A minor, F, G. You know? So again, basically just 3 chords here happening so far. Oh, love that. One sax pan to the left, one to the right. So you get that full stereo spectrum and you get to appreciate both lines equally. And now I got electric keys taking center stage up the middle. Love that. Oh, that's really smart. The piano. Yeah. I kind of played an A major scale, kind of going up and down there among the A minor sound, so it's a lot of contrast. Sax makes a return. Another case of where we step up a whole step now. We go up a whole step from A minor, now we're in the key of B minor, so it increases the energy. We can definitely feel there's a slight color change there, but it's still pretty much the same chord progression. I like this a bit more relaxed approach here. It's a lot more atmospheric, you can hear the reverb in there, and the sax is sort of laying back as well. There's not as much intensity, right? It's sort of taking those notes and inserting some more vibrato in there, and yeah, it just feels more relaxed, which is really nice. Beautiful. Love those little sax licks there at the end to wrap this up. Really, really pretty. All right, the next one here is Gestral Beach. Let's have a listen. I don't know what game this is reminding me of right now, but it's really cool. Classic technique of layering different elements as we go more and more throughout the piece. This reminds me of a lot of like Thomas Bergeson's style of music, you know? He starts with a simple idea, then continues to develop it over the duration, adding more instruments every 4 or 8 bars. And then you climax in the middle and then sort of climb away at the very end. But I really appreciate how the soundtrack has that balance of acoustic, orchestral elements, and the more electronic side of things as well. Wrapping up the percussion, you get the snare drum and more kicks, you know? Ooh, this is a nice change of color here. Nice, we got some jazziness in there. Nice. That's like a, let's see. It's almost like a G7, yeah, with a sharp 5 in there. Very, very pretty. This is definitely like a hybrid piece. Like, it's not fully electronic, it's not fully acoustic either. And then there you got the percussion, those drums in the background, keeping the momentum going. Dun, 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 dun. I do like how the music in general is not very in your face. Like, there's more of an atmosphere to it. It feels like it's taking place in a large space. And whereas a lot of the instruments, they are sort of mic'd up kind of close, like the solo cello, for example, sometimes the pianos. All the music so far has sort of had this feel of a big space, right? Like there's a cinematic scope of something happening. Whereas contrast that with Mario Kart World, for example, that is very in your face. There's a lot of jazz band there, fusion is very active and happy. This is a lot on the more on the darker side. It's still energetic in this case, but yeah, it's very different. All right, next up we've got Sirène, Rouge, Okay, let's have a listen to this. I like that intro. Kind of like in this triplet pattern leading up to this big, you know, accentuated accent for the downbeat. And the vocal comes in to really take over. Again, that big sense of space. The cello and the vocal are both quite close up to the front of the mix here, but the orchestra is definitely further back. And you can hear that reverb that's being placed on the strings and the percussion to, again, create that big sense of space there. Now we've got the bass, like that thick, fat bass coming in. Electronics, yes. You can just hear how like balanced and lush this mix is without feeling overboard. Like there really are just a few elements happening. You've got the vocal, strings in the background. There was the fat bass in the previous section, and the drums. And aside from that, there's not that much, right? But the way they've been arranged and the way they've been processed, it just takes up the entire mix, and that's all it needs to do. You really don't need to go overboard with your arrangements. Because if you do, you start getting something that feels just too thick, too sloggy. That's not even a word, but it just ends up feeling overwhelming for the listener. There's nothing they can really pay attention to. We've got the solo cello taking the spotlight. We've got the drums in the background. Some sound design on the edges, and we have the other strings, the rest of the orchestra supporting in the background, and that's all it needs to do. All right, let's wrap things up here with one more track here. This is an 11-minute cue called Une vie à peindre. Okay, so yeah, this I'm gonna guess this is some sort of like suite or something, probably combining multiple themes from among the OST soundtrack. Let's see what we can learn from this piece. I was gonna say very ethereal opening, and then the voices just make it doubly so. I love the low strings with that low bass on the bottom, just thickening up the choral texture here. And again, a lot of reverb, natural reverb, just creating that sense of space, and again, that cinematic feel. Oh, that's a nice little drum hit there, percussion hit. Staying true to the C minor key. There's sort of been a recurring key throughout the series so far. Well, there you go. That's different. Immediately we get more of a rocky section here. More metal with those electric guitars, the drums, a lot more frantic. Very interesting how the guitars are actually not panned super wide. They're sort of more up the center. So it still allows the guitars and the choirs to take up most of the stereo spectrum. Yeah, just a very interesting approach. Not something I would naturally do myself, but again, that's the cool thing about listening to new music and different approaches. Wait. So we're in the key of C minor. We go up to C sharp or D flat. And then we settle in C sharp minor, so we stepped up a semitone there. And now the chord progression repeats. So that semitone step, you can really hear the key change because we're going from a key with just 3 flats to 4 sharps. So, and now we're back in the original key of C minor. Ooh, that's cool. I like how we kind of changed up the feeling here. The BPM, either the tempo changed or the time signature changed. But before it was like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so it's moving a little bit faster. And that leads me to believe we're going to get to a really big climax sometime here in the near future. Very passionate male vocals there. I do wish the male vocal was pushed forward just a little bit more. It's a little bit drowned out by the female vocal on the left side, just a touch. I think they could have been mixed to get to a little bit more consistently as well. Like the female vocal is nice, big, and reverberant, whereas the male vocal is a lot more dry. It must be a deliberate reason, but that's just what I'm noticing here. Yeah, you hear how much more intense the male vocal is. He's almost like screaming his vocals, and the female vocal is a lot more light. Obviously, you know, male voices tend to be naturally lower, so they have to belt a lot more to get those same notes, but just the overall delivery is very aggressive here. Now we got a violin solo. Awesome. If you'd like, you can share with me what the lyrics actually mean here, because again, I don't understand the words. So what is the message behind these songs? Maybe this one in particular, but some of the other ones if you want to share as well. What is the story behind the soundtrack? What's happening in the game? Are the lyrics related to the gameplay? Like, what's happening here? Because the last time I really heard vocals take a mainstay in video game music was back in like Super Smash Bros. Brawl, right? You got those almost gibberish lyrics in the intro theme that they have like lyrics and translations there, but it's just a very epic soundtrack for a very childlike game, so it's pretty interesting. So I don't know the context behind this game. Little moment of introspection and quiet, and now we're back into the aggressive male vocals. Ooh, a nice chord there. D in first inversion before the G, and then back to C minor. Yeah, so we got a secondary dominant there, just to quickly illustrate. Right, because naturally, the D major chord is not located in C minor, but because this is the 5 of the following G chord, it makes a lot of sense before it goes back to the 1 chord. So Secondary dominants, very, very common technique in music. So are modal mixture, like borrowing from the parallel major or minor scales to juice up your original scale even further. And we've heard just some beautiful orchestration and arranging techniques here too, as well as the mixing. It's been very, very good. Nice touch there, having the violin double the vocals in unison there. So again, it just brings out the melody just a little bit more. Electric guitar is wailing away, drenched in reverb here too, so very, very huge space here, I'm feeling. A source of brooding darkness filled with a lot of passion and energy. It just proves that like minor key music can be so passionate and so powerful. Whereas a lot of Mario music, for example, is mainly in major keys. It's a completely different tone. So this is yeah, sort of the polar opposite, if you will. Build that G7 and land on the 1. There we go. Back to that progression of, 1, 7, 6, 5, back to the 1. Sort of descending the progression and then going back to the 1. So relatively simple again, but really playing around with the arrangement itself to take us many places. And I always like a good instrumental section interspersed between vocal sections. It allows our ears to take a bit of a break, especially when we go from one instrumental section in like taking some sort of instrumentation and then switching up the instrumentation entirely in the next section. That's so cool too. It definitely feels a little scarier to have this rock metal instrumentation combined with a choir. Like there's something eerie about that, It's really cool. And now that climax with the singers come back in, again, in unison, so you hear that those textures of their voices kind of combining together, complementing one another, whereas the band kind of rocks out behind them. Beautiful textures here. Hear that full choir just pan so far left and right in the background, whereas the lead vocals are totally up the center, more or less, or like slightly left, slightly right, but you would get the full stereo spectrum and everything is balanced so beautifully. So I wonder if there's going to be one more big climactic section after this dying down moment, because we've only got like a minute or so left of this piece. If I had to predict, no, it's probably going to be low energy from here to the very end. Oh, a nice little descending chromatic chord there, or sorry, diminished chord. Oh, and now we're back to what we did in the beginning with the full choir with a very thick bass. Yeah, you hear that low sub bass rumbling there, adding so much color and texture and body to the sound. And it's a lot closer now too, so not a lot of reverb here. Makes you feel a lot more intimate, which makes sense with just the few number of singers we have here. And then piano to finish. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Love that piano chord at the very end. Yeah, honestly, this is a beautiful soundtrack. Again, totally different than what I personally listen to. In fact, in my music, when I write music, I would say like 90% of what I write is in a major key, because my music was heavily inspired by a lot of classical music, but especially video game music in the style of Super Mario Galaxy, Odyssey, Mario Kart, that sort of thing. And just more uplifting music has always been my sort of approach, my sort of jam as a composer, songwriter. But again, that's the beauty of hearing different approaches, different keys, different arrangements. We've learned, I think, a lot here. Like just the way you can take simple ideas and expand upon them every 4 to 8 bars, trying different instrumentation, arranging techniques along the way. It just allows you to take simple ideas and really expand and develop them further into full-blown pieces of music that are just frankly really, really beautiful. So yeah, it's really interesting. Some pieces tend to be more harmonically complex and the focus is more on that. A lot of pieces take a simple melody and make that the focal point. Whereas I feel like this soundtrack focuses less on the actual harmonies themselves. Like it takes simple chord progressions, repeats them over and over, but allows the instrumentation, the orchestration to really take center space, or like the spotlight, and that's sort of what we're focusing on throughout. Of course, the melodies are great as well. There's a few of them that I can remember, but what really impresses me is just the orchestration, the arranging throughout here, and of course the balancing, the mixing, the mastering, that's all really good too. So you can definitely hear where these years of development of the soundtrack really went into it. And yeah, if there's other pieces you want to recommend me listen to react to, I'd be more than happy to check those out in the future. I might make a video on them. But again, if you're a composer, producer yourself, you're interested in the process of how to actually make music on your computer, all the way from the initial idea to a fully finished, published piece of music, then again, I want to give you access to my workshop down below in the description. It's called the Complete Composer's Framework. It'll literally take you start to finish, how to come up with ideas, arrange them in your computer, produce them with sample libraries, virtual instruments, and then again, mix and master it, and then put it out there into the world as a piece of music you can be fully proud of to share with other people. And again, it's a thank you for watching this video today. So if you want to grab that down below, it's on demand. You can literally watch it anytime. In any case, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you want to share any thoughts with me down below, let me know. More than happy to chat and dialogue with you there. But in any case, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.